Great respect and love. I welcome you all with all my heart. Let's get down to business. Here we go. Here's one of today's writings. The ego is an accumulation of perceptions and experiences. The who that you think you are is nothing more than a collection of impressions from the past. The ego has used these impressions to define itself as distinct from its environment. Perhaps you can see how flimsy such an limiting identification is. The who that you think you are is really nothing more than an accumulation. No real substance, just impressions from the past. When you are locked into the ego, believing it is you, you are locked into the past. Being in the present is not possible because the present exists where the ego is not. Now is unchanging. Now is real. The ego has no direct access to now, so you cannot use the ego to get to what is real. See how limited your personal idea of yourself is. The ego is confined to the past and limited to personal experiences. The ego is a useful thing to have, but it is a very shallow thing to be. There are much deeper things in life than the ego, but as long as you are locked into believing you are the ego, the deeper aspects of life will elude you. When personally identified with the body-mind, it is only natural to think that the ego can take you to what is real. But this cannot happen. Your belief that you are the body-mind will have to diminish if you are to know what is real. What is. There is no way to experience it and add it to the accumulation of what you think you are. Your accumulated perceptions are superficial. That which is everything exceeds anything that you could personally perceive or conceive. Yet it is here. It is always here. And it is with you always. You have abandoned what is, or reality, through your worship of limitation. Fortunately, that which is has not abandoned you. It embraces you now. Even if you do not know this, it is because you are facing the other way. Okay. If you do not know this, it is because you are facing the other way. Let your attention move away from the ego. You are so much more than what the ego claims for you. This is true. Take it on faith. Whew. So I hope you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. And if you really look at this, okay, this thing that you think you are, there's not much to it. And there really isn't any substance there. This thing that you think you are is nothing more than an accumulation of experiences and your perceptions of them. And that's all it is. And so, like, it's a basic thing, really, because, you know, a body needs to be able to distinguish itself from its environment, just, you know, as as a way to navigate this. You have to be able to say, okay, this is me, this is mommy, this is, the chair, this is the floor, this is, da, 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 and you learn how to navigate all this and all these different things. In order to do that, you get this sense of what the body is as compared to everything else. That's all well and good. Where the problem comes in is this belief that you have, this imagination that you have, that your body and mind is who you are. You create a whole world based on that. You see, and you can tell that world is fleeting, right? It's only going to last a lifetime at the most, that's it. And all of this is, all of these circumstances, everything like, in that beautiful link I sent with the Baba talk, he talks about how, the past, it's the past, the present becomes the past and it just disappears. Everything's gone. Everything just is constantly, it appears and then disappears. Now is here and then it's the past, it disappears. Yesterday, it's gone. It's gone, it's never coming back. So what is this? There's no solidity here. There's nothing that you can really, rely on, hit your horse to. It's not stable. It just comes and it goes. Everything comes and goes. All your thoughts come and go. All your feelings come and go. All of this, everything in this world comes and goes. You have today, and today becomes tomorrow, and it's gone. It's totally gone. And so, like, there are things that don't change. There are things that are stable, but they're not things that you perceive in the way that you perceive this world. You see, all of your perceptions, all of your senses are based upon distinctions. And that which is unchanging doesn't really have distinctions, you see. All of your thoughts, all of these words, everything that you hear, see, taste, feel is based upon some sort of distinction, something you can tell from something else, you see. And all those things are fleeting. But there is this sense of now. All of us have experienced it. In fact, you can go there right now. There is this now that happens. In that instant, the mind is on the sidelines, it's quiet. And there's just that sense of being, that sense of presence. And if you think about it, you see it's exactly the same now as it was when you were 5 years old. It's exactly the same always. It's exactly the same for you as it is for me. And it's constant. It's constant. The only thing that changes is your personal awareness of it. But it is a constant. And we are all, that is what is really happening. And it's beyond happening, you see. It's beyond perception. You can remember it, but it's not what it was. What it is something that can't be put into words and can't really be conceptualized. I'm doing it now, but it's not exactly what it is anymore. So, but that just sense of presence. Now, I know Nisargadatta, he always, goes back to that, the clear sense of I am, before anything is added to it. And that's a decent way to describe it. I don't myself, but it worked for him and it can work for you too. That sense of I am, just that sense of being, that sense of I am, before anything else is there. It's just a presence. And it's always there. So there's like this awareness of being, awareness of presence, awareness of existence. Before anything gets added onto it, it's nice and clean. That you can rely on. That has an essence that is unchanging. And if that were your primary place, then your primary place would be unchanging. And you have what is essentially a place of complete peace, of just being. And you could call it love, because it is, you see. Just that sense of being would be with you always. And so it's just a matter of not taking this personal identification thing too seriously, because it's built on nothing. It's at most a sand castle, you know, given a little bit of water and wind, it's done. There's not much to it. So if you can just, you know about this sense of presence, this sense of being, this sense of now, you know about it. And if that were just your primary place, then the rest of this stuff that goes on would always be secondary. And you wouldn't have, you wouldn't get lost in it, you know? There'd be this feeling, this thought, that thought, but that wouldn't be your place. That would just be, you know, there's a show going on, fine. Okay, that's what I got.
Ananta, I have a question, if I may.
Of course, man.
Yeah. If that place, that now is quite readily accessible, but it takes some decision to allow it to be fully experienced and known, then how to apply that to everything else, to other people, to the chair, to the floor, to the window, to the house, so that it's experienced in everything, rather than just, it feels very as if it's just in the person or behind the person, but not in the experience of everything else.
So what you're describing, bringing it into the experience of everything else, you don't have to do that, you see? So it's like you want to take that experience of what is and then personally do something with it, you see? And make it work the way you want it to work, so that you can have it as a broad application in your life, you see? And you see what the flaw is there.
Yes, yeah. Suddenly the self is in there.
What happens is, you know, that you want to be really, you want your observation of the ego to be piercing and consistent and persistent, so you catch it. So the first thing that happens when you have a clean experience of me, of let's say I, just that presence of being, the ego comes in right away and says, this is great, this is what I want, now let's make this work for me. You just catch it, you see, and you don't get involved in it. You see, that's what it's going to do. The ego is going to continue to infiltrate even the purest experience because that's its job, okay? And as long as you are following it, getting involved with it, then you're letting it get away with basically being you. You see, so whereas you had the experience of who you truly are, but what happened was the ego turned it into an experience because when you were there, the ego wasn't present. That's how it happened. Then the ego said, "Oh, this is great. I love this. This is what I've been working for. This is what I want." And so it comes in, and the only thing is now you participate, you get involved, and now you have the question. The ego has the question: how do I keep it? How do I expand it? How do I make this apply? You see? And so this should be stuff that you catch. And you go, you see? There it is. There it is. There it is again, you see? And it's not about that. And you can always go back there, you see? Right now, you can go back there. Right now, all you have to do is remember, and that stillness is there. And it's always there. And so basically, you want to apply attention to what's going on. So just watch it so that when the ego gets involved, you see it. And here's the thing about the ego. When it's seen, it diminishes. You see? When it gets away with it, it gets stronger. So it's just a game. And it'll go on until it doesn't. But in the meantime, all you need to do is pay attention and remember. So you just, on a constant, remembering that stillness, remembering that silence, remembering, forgetting, and then remembering again, remembering, till the remembering becomes primary, and the forgetting happens in such short spans you don't even notice it anymore. Then the ego will try, of course it will try, to get you involved, but you'll be remembering, and the ego's attempts will be failures. And as that happens, its attempts to get you back, all of your attention back, will gradually diminish. You see? So just, but catch it. You see? You want to, I think you know, you just catch it. Catch it, and don't let, you won't know who you are. Well, you might, but in my case, I wasn't able to know who I was before I knew who I wasn't. And recognizing that was, in my particular case, was crucial. Okay, so that's all. You just catch it. And you see, at first, it's kind of the ego catching itself. But it's I understand it's a game, but it's all right. As it happens, the more it happens, the ego becomes more and more diminished. And then that piece that I'm talking about will become so obvious that you won't be able to avoid it anymore. That stillness will be all there is, and the rest of this stuff will be just chatter in the background. It won't be anything of significance to you.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Yeah, just remember, and then don't get caught in doing anything.
Or if you do, just catch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Catch it. Don't let yourself get away with it. You see.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Ananta, I have a follow-up diminishing ego question.
Sure.
You've talked about the delusion or illusion of free will.
Yes.
So I was wondering, as someone awakens and their ego is diminishing, I kind of like the term of conditioned self, if that starts to disappear. At that point, does that person have some free will? Because they're not working off the conditioned mind anymore?
What happens is the whole idea of free will and determination, they both just melt away. Really, the concept of free will and the concept of God's will, determination, are strictly from the point of view of the individual. You see? So what happens is it all just fades away, and everything's true and not true at the same time, and you're not concerned with it. Okay? So, but Ramesh kept pounding it into me that everything is God's will. Okay? And the concept worked because it diminished my personal sense of my will, you see? And that diminishment helped. Okay? Now once it is a thorn to remove a thorn. And once it's done, you don't need any of them. Here's the thing, you see, all these are basically what I'm doing is I'm passing out concepts and beliefs that will help remove the old concepts and beliefs. But you understand, I don't believe in anything now.
Okay.
I'm giving you these beliefs because they worked, and they can work. And to relieve suffering, they're good for that. So
it seems to me that the concept of free will is forgetting that doership. It's all about doership.
yes,
If we think about free will, then we are the doers.
indeed, yes, you're correct. And doership has tremendous side effects. It's like a really bad drug where they give you all the warnings. Doership may lead to guilt, shame, pride, etc. And it's like it's a drug that has causes so much suffering. You see?
And it is like a drug, it's very addicting.
Yes, well, of course.
It's stuck on doership.
Mm-hmm. And it has its own energy. I mean, it's really very convincing thing. It creates karma. Karma is a strong energy. It lasts longer than you do. It's a very compelling force, and it makes this world seem real. It's like if you're doing it, if this is your life and these are your actions, well, now you have something. Now you have something substantial. If it's just a bunch of stuff that happens, it won't draw your attention. Not for very long. And certainly not in the same way. You don't have as much riding on it if it's not your action, if you're not responsible, if you're not doing it, then you don't have much riding on it. You see, and then it's easy just to have it be in the background as opposed to the foreground. But when you think it's you, well, Now you're involved. You see, so yes.
Yeah. There's a couple lines in the Gita that speak to that. And it goes like this. Dream not, you do the deed of the doer. Dream not, it is yours to command it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of truth even there. Mm. Did it answer for you, Lanny?
Yeah. I guess, the concept, like you said, the concept just disappears if it ever happens. It becomes unimportant, moot. Yeah.
Right. And in the meantime, we're just using some tools to help remove some of the conditioning that is well established in you, that's keeping you locked in to this little me world, you see. And if that can be diminished, then what I'm talking about will be so obvious that you won't need any words for it. You'll realize there are no words for it. And that'll just be where you live, you see. And there's just this, the mind has just become king, you see. And it's been given a certain authority that it doesn't deserve. The mind's a useful thing to have. You wouldn't want to exist in a body without one. You wouldn't want that. So it's convenient, just like a carpenter finds a hammer very convenient for building stuff. But the carpenter doesn't ever say, okay, hammer, you're in charge. And so it's just a tool. The mind is a tool, but you don't want the mind to be the master. You see, it's an inferior master, and what it does is it creates a tremendous amount of suffering for itself. You see, because it has to live up to standards it can't possibly live up to. Mm-hmm. So, all of the suffering, all of the difficulty, everything that you've had trouble with in your whole life has to do with this body-mind. All of it. But you see, there's a payoff. So there's pleasures too. And all of the pleasures have to do with this body-mind. And so it's kind of like, so it's just like a drug, you see. You get your high. But it's an addiction, you get your lows. And then you can't get out of it, you're addicted. You're addicted because, the good times are really good. You see. And you want those good feelings. And but they come as a set with the bad feelings, and then you suffer. So it's just a game. And if you can see it, it's just a play, literally a play, like on stage, a play. It's an act going on, and it's entertaining, and it has different emotions and dramas, and all this is going on. And so it absorbs all of your attention, but it doesn't deserve all of your attention. And there's something else that's way, way more awesome that deserves all of your attention. You see? The thing is that the one who gives the attention is absorbed into it. So it's not the same quality. Because right now you get to have your life. It's personal. It has a certain quality to it. But the who that you truly are is so awesome that it's not that quality. It's too universal. The who that you think you are is just you. It's very small. You know, you're living this this ant reality. You're like this tiny little ant with a body, mind, and that's your world, and that's me. And I'm an ant. I'm really a special ant, and I got an award for being such a good ant. And or I'm a depressed ant, but I'm really depressed. And you see, so you have your own little ant world, but there's a whole other thing going on here. There's a whole other thing going on that's way more expensive than this limitation that you have placed upon yourself by personally identifying with your thoughts and feelings.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. I wanted to ask a little bit about this idea of not giving the ego the attention that it craves, and the idea that it eventually sort of settles down a little bit. And my experience was not quite that. In fact, as I started to recognize it's trying to assert itself, it sort of got desperate.
Yes.
And it was almost like a little caged animal, honestly. And it got it came out in the body like as sensation, and then it came out as anger, like you're ignoring me kind of stuff. And I started to get this very weird sort of dual personality thing for a little while. And then it decided that it was going to grieve, that the ego decided it was going to grieve for itself.
Yes.
And I'm sort of just kind of coming off. It's very subtle, and it's very tricky. And I just wondered if you're saying yes, so any insights you might have would be helpful.
There is the long dark night of the soul. There is the ego does need to grieve, and the thing about the whole process is that all of it is to be seen with compassion. You have compassion and love for all of it. I mean, the ego is only doing its job. And all that's happened is that you have allowed it a little too much. And a lot, so basically, look, you can look at this and you can present it to the ego in an entirely different way. Okay? The ego has worked really, 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 really hard holding you up to be you. And you're offering it early retirement for a good job. You see, you can present this in such a way that it's not like, fuck you, get out of here, you've ruined my life. That's not what it's about, you see. This is all from love and acceptance, and everything is just fine. And if you can approach it in that way, I think it will help. It doesn't make it any less difficult. Ultimately, you have to be able to face your fear. Okay? This is part of it, because the ego's last line of defense is fear. It uses fear and doubt to keep everything in place, to keep its position, and because it considers the loss of the ego a threat to you. You see? No, the ego is still going to be there. All of my gurus, even though they said the ego is dead, whatever they said, all of them answered to their name. All of them, took care of their daily existence. Ramesh would sit at the desk and still pay his bills. So all that still went on. But he was living in peace all the time. All of my gurus were living in peace all of the time. So the trials and tribulations of the ego, whatever, you could still have a bad day. You could still have, feelings that are uncomfortable, but they're not who you are, that's all. So have compassion for yourself and have compassion for what you're going through, and know that if this were easy, you would have done it, everyone would have done it. So this is just the stuff that you're describing coming up, perfectly normal, and I consider it a good sign. Okay, not a sign of trouble. So the ego's getting desperate, and you can have compassion for the poor sucker. It's like, of course it is. It's trying its best. And, Ramesh used to say you treat the ego like an unwelcome guest. And now he was Indian, but he was brought up in English India, and he had an English sensibility to him. By unwelcome guest, he didn't mean being rude. He just meant you just don't feed it. You don't give it in. So it's like if someone came to the house and Ramesh would just, he didn't particularly care for him, he would just ignore him. He wouldn't engage it in conversation. He would just, go on with his business. And maybe the person would come over a few more times. Eventually they'd get that they're not getting fed there. So they come by less and less. So it's like that, you see? But you're kind about it, you're not rude about it, and you're certainly not, the ego's not the enemy, you see? Because here's the thing, you see, the ego tries to get involved in everything. And if there's any sense of you wanting to get rid of the ego, well, that's the ego, you see? So you want to catch that if that's what's going on, because that will make your difficulties unsurmountable. You won't be able to get past them if this is the ego trying to get rid of the ego. You see, you don't ever get rid of the ego. The ego is just gradually diminished to the point where it becomes transparent and you can see what was always there. Yeah. So, but what you're describing is what I went through, and what I think is actually a good sign. It's a good sign. It may feel uncomfortable in that grieving process. I certainly went through it. And there was a part of me just having compassion, feeling compassion for all of that. And all that stuff needed to come out, because what was happening was you cannot love what you don't know. And that grief was in there. It was always in there. Can you imagine what it feels like to feel separate from God? That's the saddest thing ever. It's in there. It's in everyone who's identified with themselves as an individual. It's a difficult thing. So yeah, this is normal, and it's actually a good sign. It means you're taking it deeper. And now the thing is not to get caught up. Okay? How bad can it get? Okay? You have uncomfortable feelings, you have difficult feelings. They're just feelings. It's fine. It's totally fine. And you see, now, from my place now, I know that a good feeling and a bad feeling for me, they're all the same. Grief, sadness, and joy, they're really all the same. We see them as separate when we're identified with ourselves as individuals, and we have preferences, and we think we like this, we don't like that, you see? And then we suffer. But indeed, you can't have pleasure without pain. You cannot. You can try and it won't work. They come as a set. And one will come and it'll disappear, and the other will come and it'll disappear. And that's how it is in this world. Everything comes and goes. You can just watch it come and go. But you know what doesn't come and go? That sense of peace, that sense of stillness, that sense of utter and complete acceptance is a constant. And you see, you just keep that. Keep that. That's a constant. And you apply it now. And you can apply it to places that are revealing themselves to you. So in other words, the acceptance is going deeper. And it's going into areas where it's never been. You see? In you psychologically, it's never been. So the acceptance goes deeper and deeper and deeper until it's complete. And then everything is fine. And then it doesn't matter what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what's going on. You know you're fine. You know everything is fine. Does that help?
Quite a bit, yes, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Good. Yeah, just be careful, because thinking that the ego is the problem is the ego. The ego is not a problem. The ego is just fine. The only thing that's happened is you've mistakenly identified yourself with it.
So here's a question.
Okay?
I've kind of seen this for some time now. I've been going along, doing my practice, we do the same decades. And it goes quite well. There's two questions really, two parts. I have to do it, and sometimes I have a lot of resistance. I don't want to do it. All sorry. Just do that.
I'm missing a lot of what you're saying, Becky.
You're missing what?
A lot of what you're saying is not coming through.
Oh, let me try this.
Okay?
Try this, see if it's better. Is this better?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
I can't hear you now.
Ah!
So I'll start in. If you can't hear me, let me know. So I do this practice, many decades, and usually I have to sort of get in touch reading, and then, maybe a tape, meditation, whatever. But I notice the thing that always pulls me out of it is when I get tangled up in certain situational things, like doing too many things, or certain things, like the phone company, certain things you get tangled up with, you can't seem to get anywhere in this modern world. And so I'm thinking, is it sensible to keep living like this? I mean, I can see why, people go to monasteries, become monks or nuns, whatever, because then you're just doing away with that. But then you're also doing away with a little bit of what you need to work through. But at some point, it seems so repetitious that, continuing to live a certain way, which pulls you out of that, almost seems to be like beating yourself on the head.
Okay, so Becky, I spent years living in ashrams. It's not like you imagine. It brings up so much shit, and it makes you crazy, more crazy than you can imagine. And here's the thing, everyone's in the same boat, and when you're getting crazy, they're looking at you and laughing. And when they're going crazy, you're looking at them and laughing. Everyone's just pulling through it, and there's still going to be difficulties there. And maybe there's a monastery somewhere where you just sit and meditate and you never get bothered. But you know what? I'll bet there aren't. I'll bet there's still things that are going to bother you anyway, because that's the nature of the beast. Now, these challenges that you're talking about are really, that's what you want. You don't want something that, if you make your environment perfect, that there's no distractions, then whatever you gain there will be temporary. As soon as you get that environment, you have the distractions again. So here's the thing. Remember, for like a year now, I've been talking about taking 10 minutes out of every hour to just remember who you are, whatever that means to you, whatever it is that you resonate with that reminds you. Becky, you know, you want to do that, and when you're distracted, when you're in situations that are difficult, you might not be able to avoid it for an hour or so, but then right after, you can come back and remember, you see? So the gap shouldn't be too long. And the difficulty is hooking you in because of the stickiness of your attachment, your identification with the ego, you see? You're identified with your thoughts and your feelings, and you don't like certain things, and then what happens is it makes it sticky since you don't like it. You can't not like something that isn't there. So you not liking it keeps it there, and now you're stuck with it, you see? So all it is exposing those attachments and that misidentification with the who that you're not. So you bring yourself into a reminder place and remind yourself, okay, well, this is not me. This is not who I am, okay? This is just a bunch of stuff that happened, and there's involvement. You can see the involvement. You see, you have to be able to see the who that you're not. Sometimes you have to be able to see it. And you can watch how that involvement works. You see, the ego's tricky. And if you allow the ego to operate in the shadows, then it becomes even more tricky, you see? So bring it into the light and just watch what happens. So you're dealing with the phone company. You know, there's always going to be something. Fine, you're dealing with the phone company, it totally hooks you in. Totally hooks you in, well, that idiot, and why are they doing this? And this and that, and all these thoughts, and boom, boom, boom. Everything that goes on, you just watch it and see how it hooks you and see what's going on and use it as a learning tool instead of thinking, I've got to get out of this. This is not where I want to be. You see? It's exactly what God is giving you, so why not just embrace it and simply see it for what it is and move on from it. You know, you can always come back to this moment now. You can always do that. It's always available. You just forget. You forget. And so you go into an extended forgetting period where there's full involvement with thought and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens. You can
see, but the thing is that when I get into the fully involved period, I can't just get back into it. It's like a huge, prolonged thing to get back into it.
Okay.
Which makes me think it's stupid to get it to do that in the first place. In fact, that was kind of Leonard Cohen's. I read this a long time ago. I don't know if it's true. Of course, it doesn't even really matter if it's true. I think he was doing, well, he did a lot of practices, right? And I think he was in a Zen monastery, but I think the conditions are primitive, or he decided to go to India because he felt like he didn't have that much life force left. And he felt he was, expending so much of it on his living circumstance and wasn't really getting anything for it. So that's what drove him to India.
Yeah, and then he went to see Ramesh.
Right.
So, and I knew him after that, and he seemed to have settled in after that.
He seemed what?
He seemed to have settled in to a place, But in any case, Leonard Cohen is Leonard Cohen. You're going to have to deal with your situation, and it's okay. you want to watch this full involvement and watch how you get hooked and watch how you lose yourself in it. Okay? And then, you know, it'll pass when it passes, but you want to know when you're fully involved, you see, and see it for what it is, and see if you can bring some compassion to yourself, because there's obviously a great deal of discomfort that you're going through. And, you know, if you saw a child somewhere in such discomfort, you would comfort it. You would say, it's okay, and I'll, you know, it's all right, and I'll be with you, know, you're taken care of. You see, so it's like you take care of yourself as best you can, you know, on a personal level, because, you know, obviously the involvement is very deep. And you can see how deep it is. And, you know, you want this stuff to come up, because it's just going to be in the background if it doesn't. You know, if it's there, you want it to be there. You are on a path to know who you are. So the who that you're not is going to come up in full force, so it can be brought into that acceptance, you see. So I can only think that the depth of the involvement is because of the depth of your personal inability to accept it. Okay, so, you know, I had my gurus, and they loved me unconditionally. I knew this. I could feel that they loved me unconditionally. I could also feel that they saw everything. So they knew all this crap was there, and they still loved me unconditionally, which showed me that it was possible. And so, you know, I could always go to my puja, and my guru's pictures were there, and I could feel them there with me. I could feel them there with me always. It's a reminder, a reminder, a reminder. You want to remember. It's so easy to forget. And especially when shit hits the fan, when uncomfortable feelings arise, you forget. So you want to have reminders around whatever it is that reminds you. I had my puja, and then at the last year of my sadhana, I made it like a religious ritual to light the candle on my puja and to keep it lit all of the time. And to always keep that, because I made this commitment, I wasn't going to forget. Because I had gone through 20 years of remembering and then forgetting, remembering and then forgetting. You know, go and make some money, forgetting. Go back to India, remember, forgetting and remember, etc. That was my pattern. And eventually it had to, you know, it was enough already. I wasn't going to forget anymore. And that was my commitment. So you see, if you make that commitment, the ego's going to test it. The ego's going to test it. And it's going to say, well, wait a minute, you got to remember me. You see? So that's all. And if you can keep your perspective through it, you know, and even if you can't, if you can gain it quickly, I don't know if you have a puja or if you relate to one, but whatever you do that reminds you of that essence within you, that complete essence, that is who you truly are, whatever that is, you keep that nearby, you keep that with you consistently. You know, 10 minutes out of every hour would be nice, every hour that you can, and maybe you can't every hour, but you know, you make up for it on other times, you see. And just continually remember. And then of course, there's the process of forgetting. But when you forget, then you remember again, you see. And you just continue that process. And if it's an extended period, you just want to have compassion for yourself, because that's difficult. You see, it's difficult. You can see how difficult it is to live in identification. It is a difficult life. It's the only reason I'm talking today, is because of the compassion for the difficulty that is. And I lived there long enough to know what that is. So, I don't know, did that help at all, Becky?
Not sure. I see what you're saying, but sometimes it seems to me, and that, I could be mistaken, that if a certain way you're living or doing is just extending the process and disrupting the peace, why not remove that?
Well, yes, when you can, it's fine. But, dealing with the phone company, what are you going to do? You get rid of your phone, you won't be able to come to Satsang anymore.
You get a flip phone.
Yeah, I got one of those. Sure.
I mean, there is a sense of certain things people can do to simplify, and I don't think that, that like ashram life is, glorified or anything like that. But, many people say there is a certain simplicity you need to, or that can be helpful.
Yes, indeed. That's true. That's true. You don't want to take on things that are just going to complicate your life if you can avoid it. There's certain things that are not avoidable, but there's other things that are. So there's truth to that. Nisargadatta, that's Ramesh's guru. He was a businessman. He had beedi factories. He had like 8 of them. And after he met his guru, and he really was committed to really imbibing what his guru said, he realized he could simplify his life by just having one beedi factory in the place where he lived. He lived upstairs in the loft. Beedi's factory was on the ground floor, and it was enough to support him and his family. And so he simplified, and just he had enough that way. He didn't have to be, running around all over Bombay with 8 factories. So he did simplify things, and that way he had spare time. And in all those spare moments, he thought about what his guru told him, and he applied what his guru's teachings were to every one of his spare moments. He's just continually looked at that. His guru said, you are the ultimate Brahman, you are the ultimate. Everything you see here is not real. And he saw that. He watched it, and he saw it in all of his moments. And within 3 years, it was done. The whole process was done. But that's because he used all of his spare moments with that, you see? And that's really all it takes, Becky, is you have a lot of spare moments in your day. You have a lot of times when there's nothing going on. And you just apply this and apply this and apply this, and it'll go deeper and deeper and deeper. And as the ego, it'll continue in the process, interrupting and doing its thing but you can just watch it and see it for what it is, you see? And less involvement will happen as you see it for what it is. You don't let it get away with convincing you that it's you so often, so much. It becomes less and less and less. It diminishes. And when the ego's diminished sufficiently, you'll see what was always there. You won't have to do anything to get there because it'll all be done. You already are who you are. You've just forgotten. And your identification with the ego has just veiled it from your awareness, that's all. So you pay attention to what is happening, and apply your guru's teachings to everything and just see it for what it is. So you can see that there's no there there. There's no there there. All these things that you're going through, they seem like a big deal, but they're not. There is no there there. It seems like a big deal to you in the moment. But if you start applying what you've been listening to, you know, for years now, you just start applying it, then you'll see it becomes transparent. There's no substance to your thoughts and your feelings and all this stuff that you're so involved with and that is making you crazy, you know? There's no there there, okay? Now, there is a lot there in this moment, in just being. There's something there that's beyond even something you can go to personally. It's bigger than that. But see it for what it is, continually watch it, watch your personal involvement, see how that works, and see the difficulty in it, and see the pleasure in it when things are going well. See how it all works. But don't be deceived, okay? Becky, this is just a dream. You're taking your dream far too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's, call it for what it is. Call it for what it is. It's really difficult to get totally lost in this if you know that it's just a dream. It's more difficult. And, you know, so I'm just suggesting you take the teachings, which I know you've heard them enough, they're solid in you. Just start applying them. Apply them to your situations. Apply them to these difficult situations that you don't like. And watch how that is. See how that is. I mean, none of this would be so bad if you weren't feeling like you don't want it. You don't like it, you see. All it is the ego holding in place, claiming it is what is happening. And you know, your little ant life, no one else cares about it. It's just your little ant life. You're having your little ant trauma, and you're taking it all far too seriously. If you saw an ant carrying a twig, feeling really proud that he was going to bring that home to the queen, and you know, you would laugh. That's funny. But here you are having a conversation with someone with your phone company, and it's pissing you off, and it's ruining your whole day. Now that's funny. Keep your perspective, okay? As much as you can, keep your perspective. And when you lose your perspective, see how that works. See how that works. You know, like the man said, 50 years from now, you won't even remember it. How big a deal can it be? Any of this? Hey, Tracy.
Well, I'm floating around in the cosmos here.
Yeah.
And it's dark. There's a lot of stickiness. And it's my birthday.
No!
And I'm usually partying and I'm isolated and I don't like it. But here we are. So what I want to know is when you light a match in the darkness, the light prevails, doesn't it?
Well, keep in mind that the light and the dark depend on each other for their existence, right? So you can use that analogy if it works for you. By the way, I love your background there.
It's good for a birthday.
Yeah, you know, just don't worry about it. You know, happy birthday anyway. If I'd known, I would have brought you something. And I would have brought it right here and eaten it myself.
Well, I like Pam's background, so I finally figured out how to work this thing.
Ah,
Hi, Pam.
Hey, hey. Well, thank you. I love your background. It's beautiful.
yeah, very cosmic.
But there's a lot of stickiness on a birthday.
Yeah.
Years of events, and now this whole new world we're in. It's really not what I bargained for.
Well, yeah.
Well, I know I'm complaining and ego and all that, but when you're in the middle of it, as you know, we've been talking about, the pathway out can seem kind of murky. So
Well,
you just sit and be compassionate and eat chocolate.
that chocolate always helps. I'm a big believer in that. Well, look, why take it too seriously? You have your good times, you have your difficult times. It's just life. And the one thing you can rely on is change, because that's how life is. So you have this time now where there's change. And some of it you don't like. But think about all the annoying people that don't come by anymore.
Well, I think it just accumulated. There's certain highlights, or certain events. So I thought I was doing okay, maintaining equilibrium. And then today hits and bam. So I guess it's time to sit back and witness.
Oh yeah, as much as you can. Look, it's I know your birthday has always been a big deal. There's been lots of people there, and you get to have a little celebration. Now it's just Dan.
Poor Dan, he's got his hair back tonight.
Oh. Well, anyway, you know.
But you know what? If I'm going to be somewhere, I love being with you. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I will feel better tomorrow.
I'm glad. I'll have to bring you something tomorrow. Sweet. Well, look, this is just life, right? You know this, and you don't have to like it all. It doesn't really matter. If you did like it all, it'd be kind of weird. But just you don't have to get involved either. It's and really, Tracy, do you think you were born?
Well, sort of.
Well,
I feel like I'm here.
As soon as you think you're born, it means you're going to die. So then you really have something to worry about. So my birthday wish for you is that you realize that you were never born. The who that you are is eternal. You see, there was, who were you before you were born? Who will you be after you die? And what makes you think you're any different now? So, happy birthday to who? Mm.
Ananta,
Yeah,
question.
great.
So you've been, of course, talking about for some time now the task at hand, which is remembering who we are, the essence of who we are, which for me begs the question, who is it that's trying to remember? And I guess my question for you is, so as long as we're in this process of remembering, are we always just mimicking the truth until there's zero involvement or zero identification?
Yeah, indeed. As long as there's a process, there's always going to be a me involved, just by fact that there's a process, okay? Ultimately, there's nothing to be done, but you have, it's like, for the me, it's a lot of work not to do anything. So basically what you're doing is you're bringing yourself to a place of doing less, doing less, doing less, doing less, until it just diminishes on its own. And you see, I had this advantage that, I hung out with my gurus and I knew basically what it felt like, what they were really talking about behind all the words. Now, they all had words. And, even though the instruction was very little, really, there's still a lot of concepts and ideas. And so, but that wasn't really what it was, but that's all I had to work with because I was still working with it. You see, you're going to work with it until the work is done. And then there's no one to work on it anymore. It's done. So you're just approximating and mimicking, but you get closer and closer and you can feel what it is. You can feel what it is. You and I, we've been in satsang plenty of times. You know what this feels like, what I'm talking about, behind the words. Like Ramesh always said, the teaching is passed in silence. And it's absolutely true that behind everything that's being said right now, there is a stillness, there is a silence, which I trust that people are feeling right now. That's what I felt with my gurus, that there is this stillness that goes on. So in other words, when it happens, you'll recognize it, because you'll recognize, oh, that's the same as it felt, you see, with my guru. That's the same. So then you know when it's clean, and you know when the me gets in and mucks it up, because it feels different then, because the me is always conditional. And the love that I felt with my gurus was always unconditional and without boundaries, without limits. Shree would greet you as if, he was so present in that moment. You would feel like he lived his whole life for that one moment that he spent with you. And you could feel that. So it was a brilliant example of what it is to be totally present without any extraneous bullshit going on. And so you'll recognize it, and it'll hit you from behind, because it can't hit you from the front as long as you're doing stuff. You see, because you're doing stuff, and that's all me. It's all right. So what we're doing is we're taking a thorn to remove a thorn. Once that thorn removes the old thorn of old concepts and, old ways of identifying yourself, you don't need that thorn anymore. They all go away, and then everything just is. Okay? So, all this spiritual talk that I'm doing with you, I don't think about it in my normal life. Okay? That's not something. I'm only thinking about it now because I'm doing some writings, and they just spontaneously come. So whatever is written just comes and it gets written. But I'm not sitting around thinking about this shit. And you are, but that's because you're in the process. You see, once the process is done, you will no longer have anything to believe. You will no longer have the need for concepts. You'll just be, and so like I'm hearing different things because I've been doing this intensive with y'all, and I haven't stopped. But and I'm hearing these beautiful descriptions of what it is, and I'm going, yeah, that's it. But I never really thought about it really that much. It's like, yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it. This thing I just sent out with Baba, it's beautiful, just gorgeous way of saying it. So succinctly, exactly correct. I thought it was brilliant, you see. So just, don't worry about it. Yes, indeed, it's still, the me is still involved and you're mimicking the truth, but you're still in the thorn, removing the thorn stage. And once that's done, it happens on its own. And the who that you are is all that's left, you see. And
Right.
nothing to do. It's not like you have to work for it. You never had to work for it. You just thought you did. And really all you were doing was working on removing the who that you're not from the front seat, you see, and letting it sit in the back of the bus.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. That is as much of the work as it is remembering.
Yes.
Is remembering who you're not.
Yeah, well, also who's remembering, you see?
Yeah, I know. That's the question.
Well,
Right.
Not even, it's obvious,
Yeah.
This is all a me process until
Right.
it's diminished enough that there no longer needs to be a process. So, yeah, it is inevitably flawed. But I am here to tell you that it works. Okay? I'm a living example that it can work. So please keep it up.
Great.
And you have that sense of being with you always. It's something that you can always go back to. I have a feeling you can always go there. And so it's just remembering to go there, you see. And eventually, the one who's remembering to go there will be so diminished that it won't be necessary. But remembering to go there helps diminish it in the meantime. Okay?
Yeah. I like the word that you used earlier, clean. I think you said something right at the very beginning, that the I am, before there's any identification,
Yes.
it's that sense of clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a
That works.
Did a writing about this. Let me see. It was recently. I think it must have been. I can probably find it here. Murky. Well, there it is. I only said murky once. So. Okay. There is so much you cannot do in this process, but one thing you can do is watch your mind. You have been going through much of your life as a passenger, while the mind is in the driver's seat. Become less of a bystander and pay direct attention to your mind. Watch how the mind works. See how it manipulates your thoughts and conjures up feelings. It is a marvel how the mind can make what is essentially nothing and convince you it is everything. Don't try to change anything. Just see things as they are. You are largely the product of an inattentive mind, and this makes everything murky. When you give your mind full attention, it will begin to become clear. This will reduce the elusiveness of the mind and make its efforts at manipulation more obvious. Apply the teachings here. Watch it all with the full knowledge that everything the mind is showing you is illusion. Don't try to get out of thinking. Don't try to change a thing. Just watch it all exactly as it is. At the very least, you will be living with more clarity in your life, and this will have its effect over time. So, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Donald.
You bet.
Hey, water.
So everything we're talking about takes a mind. You have to think about everything and process it through this mind. And I try to manifest it in my body because of my physical stuff. So what I'm just expressing is I'm breathing the silence through my bones. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, indeed. And you know, the mind and the body are very well connected. They're buds.
That's how I can have compassion to my situation. So instead of feeling it as pain, I try to bring it in through the feet or even through the bones, because bones are hollow, and bring that silence in so I can just, but see, it's all I.
Yes, I know.
Because I'm trying to make the body feel more at ease.
Well, Tracy's got a very strong sense of me. Yeah, she's a real champ. But that's all right. That's all right. You know, the thing is, the truth is, the silence owns you. You're wanting to get to it, and that's a process. But the process would end as soon as you realize that it's who you are. You see, the stillness, that silence, it's not only in your bones, it's everywhere. It's everything. You see, so every thought that you ever had arose out of silence. Every feeling that ever came up for you arose out of stillness. You see, you can't see the silence or the stillness because the mind is only designed to see distinction. And when you're attached and identified with your thoughts and feelings, you're attached and identified to distinctions. And that stillness has no distinction because it's everything, you see. So it's all right. You're just living in this this dream world. It's totally all right.
Well, I can see the tendency to want to fix it.
Yeah.
So by telling me the silence is everywhere and I'm sitting here being poetic about my bones, and it doesn't matter. You know, if it's everywhere, it's everywhere. I have the problem with the bones. So that's why I'm grasping and, you know, trying to figure it out, which is bringing compassion. You know, if I just knew how to bring that full compassion, I wouldn't have to segment myself out. Yeah.
Well, just as best you can, just love yourself. You're fine, you know, and you know, there is in the space unconditional love always. Always. Right there. Yeah. And it's always there. And if you just became aware of that, you wouldn't have to work so hard because it's always there for you. It's always there with you. Hi, Pam.
So, Ananta, we're at a very different level than you are, obviously.
You think? We're
Yeah.
as far as I'm
So with Tracy, you know, she has discomfort. And so if she's successful at putting, inviting silence into her bones to address some of the discomfort that is right in her face, isn't it helpful to start incrementally, start with whatever pain we're having, emotional or physical or etc., to invite that silence into that issue? And then it can reverberate outward, is for us little beginners.
Sure. You can do whatever process you like. Okay. It's just not my area, you see. Ego improvement is totally fine, and it has its place, and it can relieve suffering. And certainly you can use spiritual teachings for ego improvement. It's not a problem. It's just not something that I'm promoting because really it's a lot of work and it never ends. So the deal is, at the moment that you know that you are not this individual, the moment that you're clear that this is all a dream, that's the moment that you live in peace eternally. See, that's the moment when all of it ends. So, you know, this is what I'm moving you toward that place where you came from, that place where you're going to, and that place where you are right now, but you are just, you're imagining that you're someone else. You're dreaming that you're living a life. You see, now the life is going on, but it's not your life. You're so much more than that. You see, so I'm giving you basically this is there's a whole freeway. There's roads going here and there. There's paths, and there's fast ones and slow ones, and there's traffic lights and yields, and all of this is going on. And you can take any path you like. But I'm saying you're already home. You just don't know it. And you're pretending that you're someone that you're not. You see? So it bypasses all of it. And eventually it's going to hit you from behind as soon as the mind is still enough and the detachment is sufficient. You'll realize that none of this has anything to do with you. You see? And then the suffering will end. The suffering that you've been living with will end. So, yeah. Yeah, so you see, I won't go into too much detail with that. I give a lot of instruction anyway. I feel a lot more ego instruction than Ramesh would ever dream of. And maybe Baba a little bit, but you know, it doesn't really matter. You know, you do the best you can in life, and you deal with things as best you can. My process had involved some psychology, so I teach it with some of that. But ultimately, what happens is that the ego is abandoned. And what a relief that is, really, even for the ego. So you see, ultimately, it's just a switch. And then the process is just a process, and you, bit by bit, improve your life as it works for you. But ultimately, you see, the who that you are is the who that you are. And the who that you are is at peace with all of it, with everything, you see. So all of your struggle and all of your work to get to someplace that you don't have to get to because it's already who you are. So you don't have to do anything to get there. It's home. So just recognize that and see it for what it is, see everything for what it is. I mean, you've built your life on this, basically an accumulation of experiences and perceptions. That's who you think you are. And it's nothing. It's nothing. It's like all that stuff never even happened. It's gone. It's the past now. It's all gone. Everything that you built your existence on doesn't even exist anymore, except in like these recordings in your mind, which you call memory. You know, and that's what you're basing your life on. And that's ridiculous, you know, really. You can do better than that. So you see, if you can see it for what it is, call a spade, then all of this fades away and your suffering ends. Your suffering ends, and basically then you're just living in peace. You know, the beautiful thing that I sent with Baba, he sells it really good. He's like, you know, this is like joy and happiness and beauty everywhere. And it's like, you know, you're just filled with bliss all of the time. It is all true, but he sold it so good.
You did.
Yeah, and that's why he had the big crowds. But you see, so this is, it's truly who you are. And this thing that you have stored in your memory, in your mind, these experiences and perceptions, they're of things that never even happened. You don't exist. You're convinced that you are this individual, and I'm saying you don't even exist. You know, what are you going to do? So, you know, you're going to die, and they're going to put your name on a tombstone. And how many people do you think are going to come by to venerate you? It's nothing. None of this exists. This didn't even happen. All right? So just keep your perspective. There's something going on here that is way deeper than what you're pretending to be. And way, way more substantial. It's so substantial that you can't even conceive of it in your mind.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You bet.
So we're going to throw the ego right under the bus.
Who's going to do that?
Well, I guess when you, and then what about this statement? I've suffered enough.
Oh, yeah? We'll see about that. And then you have to ask, well, who's suffering? Who's suffered enough? Who's going to get rid of the ego? The ego's slippery, man. Slippery.
Shit, we can't win.
Not as an ego. Yeah, the illusion will remain an illusion no matter what you do. Hmm. Hmm. Before we close, I want to make sure that everyone who wants to say anything can and has and will. There's a couple new people. You're welcome to speak up if you want. Hmm. Hmm.
Tell Tracy to check the chat box.
Let's see. Oh, sweet. I just checked it myself.
Yeah, but there's private ones to her.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Sandy. What's that?
Well, you know, on the subject of birthdays, there's been something that's been nagging me a little bit, and that's the idea that we're unborn, the unborn. And when I heard it for the first time, you are the unborn, it blew me away. And I inquire on it. I sit in it, sort of. And my question is, it seems that something was born. I'm starting to recognize that it wasn't me that was born, that I was prior to whatever it is that was born. You know, I talk to my mom every day. She's still with us, and she loves to talk about my birth.
Huh?
You know, because I was born on July 4th. I was a firecracker baby. She loves to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her, clearly I was born. There was an event. And so I would love a little more insight into if the me that I know to be true is unborn, what emerged? What was born?
The body was born. You know, bodies are born and they die. Now, the mind comes with the body. That sense of me as an individual comes with the body. They're all connected. So the individual is born and dies, but the who that you are is eternal. So there was an essence that you arose from. And there's an essence that you're going to return to. And right now, it's hard to see because you're looking at everything through your mind. And your mind is has only a limited viewpoint. And also your mind has created this thing called time. You see? So everything's chronological and it makes sense and you have a history. And so it makes all this work. Everything works. And feelings, thoughts, all of them rely on time. But you see, that's a limitation. And the who that you are is beyond all those limitations. You see? The essence of everything is everything. And that's actually what is going on here, is a manifestation of individuality popping out of everything, you see, because everything would include it. So, but where you identify, if you identify with yourself as an individual, then you were born and you will die. But if that identity is dropped and all there is this sense of being, this sense of presence, this immense sense of everything all interconnected, then there's no issue of this. There's no issue of limitation at all. And so you don't get the sense that that you're going to die. Now, I remember Ramesh. Someone came to see Ramesh, and they wanted to see a samadhi, and Ramesh said, "There is no samadhi." He was cremated, and they went to see. They wanted to see Nisargadatta's samadhi, his guru. He said, "There is none." And he goes, and first he goes, My guru was never born. How could he die? And I didn't understand it at the time. I understand it now. But this guy was really insistent, and he just said, "No, I need to see where he was, how he taught all this." And Ramesh finally went. He goes, "You want to see my guru's samadhi? It's right here." The guy left, and he was not satisfied. I liked it, but you see. And Nisargadatta talked about this all the time, you see. And now Ramana, who's right there, Ramana was dying of cancer, and everyone was, they were sad. And he continued. He was in public through the whole thing, and he goes, "Why are you so sad? I'm here. I'm always here." Like for him, there was absolutely nothing connected with the body. You see, he never felt he was the body. The body is born, the body dies. There's a mind, and it has thoughts, and there's feelings, and there's pleasures, and there's pain, but that's not who you are. You see, so when you know that, then then finally you're done with the whole cycle of birth and death. It's not for you. That's for a body. And the karmas are for a body. And they just go on, and it all cycles out however it does. But you're done. You see? So in fact, a body was born, a body dies. During the lifetime, there's thoughts and feelings and things, and there's a dream that happens. You see, so I always feel like these bodies are basically virtual reality machines. And the mind is like a projector, a virtual reality projector. And everything appears to be happening, and it's running a show. And basically you have a movie that lasts a lifetime. And it's got better effects than the movie theater ones. That's all. Better special effects, and it's very convincing and seems real, but it's just a show. And it's got nothing to do with you. There's just a show going on. So in the infinite existence, there's this little entertainment center, and bodies are born and die, and animals and everything else, and stuff goes on there. So it's like a little amusement park going on here. And with virtual reality machines, consciousness can put on a virtual reality machine, pretend it's not everything. You see, but indeed, you were never born, not the who that you are. The body was born, but the who that you are was never born and will never die. And you see, most people are going through life with the fear of death. But that switches, you see. You don't need to have that, because you can never die. And that's true. Did that help at all?
I think so. that essence that you mentioned, the word essence is sort of a thingness, you know? So, I mean, the first thing, when I heard you say essence, everything went, well, is that clean? That was the first thing that I heard, you know? It's like, is that essence? Is that void?
Yes. Yes, you would sense it as void. So because you live in your mind, everything looks like nothing to you. Okay? So silence and stillness looks like nothing. But indeed, everything is silence and stillness. But the mind can't see it, so it looks like nothing. The mind has you looking at the world backwards. The mind thinks everything is what the mind thinks is everything is actually nothing. And what the mind thinks is nothing is actually everything. And as long as you're looking at everything through your mind, that's how it looks. So there's a lot of words that can be used. None of them are correct. You just use whichever one you have resonance for. I use the word essence because there is, to cover that everythingness about it. But you know, it is everything and nothing at the same time. So it's very difficult to talk about because it's not anything that fits into a concept really. But you know, what are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
I could just sit here in silence.
There's a notion that there's something after the body dies that wants to sort of resolve itself, and it does so by reincarnating. It takes its baggage and finds a new home.
Yes, yeah, the cycle continues until it's worked its way out, you see. So the enlightenment would be the end of that cycle of birth and death. That's all. But certainly, you know, there is a chronology, there is a history to all of this, you see, but that's all within the realm of the illusion, you know. So and there's forces within the illusion that are very compelling.
Mm.
And there are, you know, there's no doubt this is a well-built virtual reality, and very few people are able to realize that it's not real before death. So,
Thank you.
of course. Nice. Okay. How are we doing? Good then. Oh, thank you all for coming. We're going to sit quietly for a short time.